The Nuggets season could come down to game 3 tonight in Los Angeles. And that means it's time for Jamal Murray to put on his cape and save the Denver Nuggets. We'll talk about that right now on the Mile High Hoops podcast presented by Mile High Appliance. Thank you to our people over there for sponsoring this episode. AP, I think every time the Nuggets have needed it and have succeeded, Jamal Murray is the guy wearing the cape that saves the Nuggets season. Like, this is the guy who in the past has had those bubble runs. He was an all-star caliber player in the 2023 season. And in fact, I looked it up. This is one of those crazy stats from game 2 that we went over on the podcast the other night. The last time Jamal Murray shot over 50% from the field and the Nuggets lost in that playoff game, game 4 against the Phoenix Suns in 2023. The Nuggets do not lose normally when Jamal Murray shoots 50% or more from the field. They're 20-5 in Jamal's career when he shoots 50% or more from the field. Just compounding that, 19-7 when they get Jamal Murray to 25 points. So if Jamal Murray tonight can get 25 points and do it efficiently, I think the Denver Nuggets win. As simple as it can be right there, AP.
Well, and that's essentially his average for the playoffs. Jamal Murray averaging 24.1 points, 6.2 assists, 4.9 rebounds in 67 career playoff games for the Blue Arrow. And I agree, because what did we talk about at, was it Tuesday morning, whatever it was, after game 2, about how like Jokic has been great, but not even great. I should pause. He's been good, but he hasn't been the best player on the court throughout the course of this series. And that's a problem. And now Denver, I don't want to say with their backs against the wall, but as we talked about extensively, like the Clippers came into town and did what they needed to do, right? They were able to split, and now Denver's got to go back to LA now and try to swing home court advantage back in their favor. And I think it starts and ends with Jamal Murray, just because you know what you're getting from Joker. Joker tonight, if I had to predict it, 22, 11, and 9. If I had to guess, like that's probably like within spitting distance of where he'll end up. So who's going to be the guy that helps put the pressure on the Clippers tonight? And that person should be Jamal Murray.
If Joker only goes 22, 11, and 9, the Nuggets are losing tonight. He needs a 30-point triple-double. We talked about it after game 2. He needs a 30-point triple-double, and Jamal Murray needs to score 27 or something like that and do it on plus shooting from the field. And you say their backs aren't against the wall, AP. You're kind of uncomfortable saying that. Literally, their backs are going to be against the wall at Intuit Dome. This is going to be a raucous environment, a playoff environment. And the Nuggets have played in just about every playoff environment. This is going to be different than anything they're used to because of it's the first home playoff game at this stadium. The stadium built to make noise. You heard David Adelman talk about it yesterday at practice, where he says they pump in noise to that place. I think he means that it just gets really loud. But the Clippers fans meant it as they're using artificial noise. And now the Clippers fans have a villain in this series, and it's the Nuggets interim coach, very similar to the way Michael Malone was pissing off fan bases the last couple of years. So I think there's a lot going into this game, both behind and above the scenes, so to speak. But as simple as we can make it, Jamal and Nikola Jokic, probably the grade on this series for them is probably a C+, B-. Like, I really am not upset with the way they've played. The problem is Nikola Jokic needs to be the best player on the floor for the Nuggets to win this series, and Jamal Murray probably needs to be the third best player on the floor for the Nuggets to win this series.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, and I think you can make the argument right now that the two best players in this series are both Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi Leonard after game 2 and James Harden after game 1. And, the other thing, kind of going back real quick to the Jokic dynamic for the triple-double, 30-point and whatnot, I'm not saying that's impossible, but the Clippers have done a really good job of switching quickly and putting Jokic in a trap, double team, triple team. Zubac, of course, as we've talked about a lot throughout the course of the playoffs so far. So that's where the pressure's on for Jamal Murray. And the question is, how healthy is he? And I'm not talking about the knee. I'm not talking about the hamstring. I'm talking about a sickness that's been going around the Denver Nuggets locker room. I know David Adelman talked about that yesterday. You and I had kind of observed Nikola Jokic before he took his first question in the press conference after game 2, kind of give it a little just not sounding 100% there. So look, I'm expecting Jamal to show up tonight. He's a playoff riser. He's been fine this playoff series. As you and I were kind of talking about before we started this podcast, he hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. Like, he's been good. But if Denver wants to come back and retake home court advantage, they're going to need a vintage playoff Jamal Murray performance, and hopefully it comes tonight in game 3.
And that's part of the thing with their margin of error being so small. They just absolutely need Jamal Murray to be that guy that went off in the bubble, that went off in the 2023 playoffs. They can't have him be, what was in 2024, which wasn't even that bad. It was just kind of meh. Right now it's been, they need, yeah. Like if I was to give little reactions,
yeah.
We're so embedded with this Denver Nuggets team, AP, that I have the illness that they all have. That's how close I am to these guys. That's why you hear me sounding weird on this podcast right now. I'm a little stuffed up because I can tell you it is affecting the way I'm performing, but I can still do my job. So maybe Jamal's got a little worse than me, but I can tell you it is an annoyance, and especially in communication, which is our whole job and is a big part of the Nuggets job. And something I've written about with the Denver Nuggets, there being that struggle between them and that kind of being fixed with DA so far, at least band-aided over. It's kind of hard to talk loud, and it's very important to talk loud. So I don't know if I have exactly what the Nuggets have, but I can tell you what I'm feeling. And based off of what I heard from Nikola Jokic's voice and kind of what Jamal said, scratchy throat, trouble swallowing. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. So I'm right there with them. I'm maybe not right there with them, but I get it. So it's a tough situation, but ultimately they can't reschedule when game 3 is going to be.
Nope.
And we've seen Jamal Murray in a Western Conference final, literally with the flu, go out to a strong Lakers team and just flew arrow it. Against that Lakers team in game 2. So that was one of his vintage playoff performances. So I think he has the ability to trug through that. And I almost think Jamal Murray is a guy sometimes that plays better on the road because there are 2 types of players in the NBA. Well, there's a couple types of players in the NBA, but there are guys who go out on the road and shrink. And then there's guys who go out on the road and say, I love the haters. And Jamal Murray loves the haters. So I almost think getting out on the road, getting to Los Angeles, a place he likes a lot, can kind of spur him into being that all-star level, bumping up from just, being a very good player.
He's definitely a villain, and not just for opposing teams. Like even here, like there's a lot of Nuggets fans that are very, very frustrated with him. And you know what? Like you almost need him to play well out of spite. Like, oh, I'm sick. Okay, like watch this. Oh, you don't think I'm an all-star? Okay, go ahead, watch this. Oh, we lost home court advantage. Okay, watch this, right? Like Jamal Murray is at his best when he's got something to prove. And I don't even know if it's about like he himself having something to prove, but he's one of those guys that I think loves the hate, loves the doubt, loves the questions, because I think he himself knows who he is, knows his abilities, knows what he can do on the court game in and game out. And sometimes it just takes that little jab, a little gut punch to kind of get him to show up that way as well. So I'm excited. Here's the other thing, and we'll see what happens in game 3, but I think game 3 is very important. And I know they did a good job against the Lakers the last couple of years, but LA nightlife is undefeated. And Denver's going to have a day off in between game 3 and game 4, which is going to be interesting here too. So I think it's really important for Denver to come out tonight with a sense of urgency and do everything they can to go back up 2-1, not so they can fall back and roll over in game 4, but so they can build some momentum going into game 4 and swing that home court advantage back in their favor.
Yeah. So teams that in NBA history since 1984, teams that win their first game at home, then lose their second game at home, are still 52-28 in series. Teams that lose the first or win the first game at home, lose the second game at home, and then lose the first game out on the road to go down 2-1, those teams have a record of just, I've got it right in front of me, 20-32. So we talked about the end of that game literally flipping the percentage chance based off historical data of this series by 30% in game 2. Tonight's outcome flips this series again by 20 to 30% chance, basically, of what happens. And a big part of that flip, according to himself, was Michael Porter Jr. and his error. We both agreed that that wasn't the reason why the Nuggets lost in game 2, but his error is the reason why he's on the injury report for game 3, because he went and dove for a loose ball, banged up his shoulder pretty bad. It did not look good post game. I think that came across pretty clear with the way AP and I were talking about it. He's questionable. They say it's a shoulder sprain. We know it's a joint sprain. He talked about the amount of pain he was in. He practiced a little bit yesterday, but I don't think the Denver Nuggets can win this game without Michael Porter Jr. playing at least 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I talked about it with Dover and Cecil. You and I have talked about it publicly, privately. Even when Michael Porter Jr. is not scoring in the manner in which you'd hope he would, he impacts the game in two ways. Rebounding. He's been absolutely sensational in the rebounding department, 15 and 15 last game. And also just the spacing. Like you're just going to be able to create so many more opportunities for Nikola Jokic and company and take that pressure off of him, because the Clippers have to respect his shooting, whether he's making the shots or not. It's not like Russell Westbrook where you're just going to leave him open in the corner as I did in game one and he beats you for it, right? Like Michael Porter Jr. has proven enough in his NBA career that he is going to carry some weight for opposing teams when it comes to their defensive strategy. So regardless if he's out there or not, Denver's got to figure out a way to get this offense going, but without Michael Porter Jr. or a limited Michael Porter Jr., that's going to make life even harder on guys like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And one guy as well that had a rough game in game two, putting the ball in the hole, was Christian Braun. And again, no MPJ, less spacing, less shot creating opportunities, right? And so MPJ, love him or hate him, frustrated or not, plays a critical role in the overall success or failure of this Denver Nuggets team in this series.
What should the Nuggets do on defense in this game? Should it be more like what they did in game one and trying to let them cook from the pick and roll, so to speak, and then trying to stop other options? Or should it be like game two where they really attacked the pick and roll and hurt them that way and made them do isolation offense via Kawhi, via Norman Powell at times?
I lean towards the latter just because, and maybe this is crazy for me to say, but like, let's see Kawhi do it again. Right? Like he did it in game two. He's an all-time great player. Like he's always going to get his, but can he be that efficient? Like miss like 2 or 3 shots throughout the course of the game? Because that's the thing is game one, it felt like from the jump, Denver was hemorrhaging with James Harden doing his thing and Zubac doing his thing and Nick Batum in the corner, right? Game two, again, I've said it time and time again, so plug your ears, Nuggets fans, if you hate this take, but Denver was in control for game two. They were in control. And that final sequence there, I mean, it was a blown opportunity, in my opinion. So that's why I lean to, not if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think Denver was better prepared for the body of work in the game for game two than they were for game one, where they were playing a little bit catch up.
Yeah, I watched it back. I think in theory, my thought is I'd rather let Kawhi Leonard try to beat me, especially for the defenders I have, than James Harden. I want to stop James Harden. I want to cut the head of the snake. But in the same regard, I think there were some principles that happened within those games that changed that I didn't like. I overall liked the scheme a little bit better in game one than game two, but I thought the actual theory of it was correct in the changes. So we'll see how they react. If you go back and watch, just about everything was thrown at Kawhi Leonard by the Nuggets defense late in that game. The only thing that worked, the literal only thing that worked, was at the start of the fourth quarter when Peyton Watson comes out there and there's 2 missed shots in a row from Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, Peyton Watson had a foul on Kawhi in the first half on a drive, but he contained that drive and made him take a tough shot. AP, I think I want Peyton Watson out there for 20-plus minutes tonight. I think I want Peyton Watson eating some of Russell Westbrook's minutes. I think if Kawhi looks anything like he did in game two, I think you got to sacrifice some of the offense. And honestly, it's not even that much offense because Peyton can shoot and Russ can't. I think you got to put Peyton out there and play a defensive style and try to slow down the Clippers with someone rangy and athletic and with the rim protection that Peyton offers. Because right now, and I love Aaron, but Aaron isn't the rim protector right now. He was a couple of years ago. And at the same regard, Aaron's also your main perimeter defender in this series on Kawhi. So if you have Peyton Watson flying for actual rim help, I think that changes some things, especially when you're a little iffy about MPJ's shoulder. I think Peyton Watson could be an X factor tonight, but the Nuggets have to unleash him.
100%. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. And that's where I was going to go with the follow-up point is he's the only guy on the bench that I think can make a legitimate impact in this series. Look, I love Jalen Pickett. He's too small for this series. I mean, you saw it time and time again. Julius Randle's too inconsistent, and I worry about what kind of game shape he's in after missing all that time and playing a handful of games before the playoffs. So I agree with you. I think Peyton Watson is frankly, maybe the only adjustment that Denver has kind of like in their bag of tricks here that they can kind of whip out and try to, throw a new look, a new vibe at this Clippers team. And so, David Adelman has been saying, and he said it a little peeves. I think it was after game one, we're going to play the guys that are playing well, right? Like that's been like kind of the trademark of all of his press conferences right now. So if Peyton Watson can go out there in his first little rotation stint, go out there, play well, hit a corner three, play some good perimeter rim defense as well. That just might be it. And again, you mentioned it. Aaron Gordon's got his hands full, man. And I agree that maybe AG's lost a step, but he still has the most important defensive assignment for this Denver Nuggets team. So you got to give him some help.
Yep. Another thing that's going to happen in this game that didn't happen in game 1 and 2 is it's in Los Angeles, which generally means the home team's role players play a little bit better than the road teams. That's kind of the big advantage. It's not with the stars. It's kind of like those guys that are tertiary and the fifth guy and stuff like that. And that worries me a little bit because at one point in game 2, Norm Powell and Bogey Bogdanovic were a combined 2 for 15 from the field. I don't think that's happening again. But in the same regard, if the Nuggets can go plus 10, plus 15, plus 18 on the glass, and that's where MPJ comes into this, I think they're in good shape, particularly with the amount of offensive rebounds they have for their offensive struggles. I think that was huge. But they are going to concede some offensive rebounds tonight, I believe, because I think they're going to get a little bit more aggressive on defense, and that cuts into the fast break points, which didn't happen in the last 3 quarters of the game. That cuts into those long rebounding opportunities. But ultimately, it comes back to the star player for me with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Those are the guys that can win a game. We saw Kawhi Leonard win the Clippers game 2. That is what happened. I mean, the Nuggets lost it in a couple different ways. They blew some opportunities down the stretch, but if Kawhi wasn't a robot, they still win that game, even with blowing those opportunities. So I want to see Kawhi make that pass that he made to a cutting Zubac, a cutting Norm Powell across the middle. I want to see him make that all game. I want to see that happen. Yep. He had 7 turnovers in game 1. The Nuggets got into him. They have fantastic defenders for the amount of strength that they have on Kawhi Leonard. This reminds me a lot of the Suns series back in 23. I talked about it before the series where they take a lot of tough mid-range shots. I think the Nuggets are defending Kawhi Leonard very similarly to the way that they defended Kevin Durant in that series. The problem is Kawhi Leonard is stronger and he's a little bit better at protecting the ball than Kevin Durant. So the Nuggets got some rips on KD. Obviously, KD was taller and could shoot over anything, but Kawhi is not bothered by contests. That's the craziest part about Kawhi. He's got dead-eye Hall of Fame if we're going to take it into NBA 2K terms, right? So if you put Peyton Watson out there who can block shots, I think that can be a legitimate threat because the only way Kawhi is going to be bothered is if the ball literally can't go into the hole. That's one of the things I'm looking for with the Nuggets tonight. I'm curious to see if DeAndre Jordan gets a little burn like he did in the first half of game 2, how the Nuggets will match up the minutes with Zubac. We talked about it at the top. 1 and 2 probably in the series have been Harden and Kawhi. 3 and 4 have probably been Jokic and maybe Murray, but you can make a case the 4th best player in this series has been Ivica Zubac, and the Nuggets haven't had the crazy Ivica Zubac game yet. They've had some decent ones, and I'm scared Ivica Zubac at home is going to be maybe a 2020 threat tonight, AP, and the Nuggets might have to put DJ out there to keep Nikola out of foul trouble, which seems like it's kind of we're getting close to Nikola being in a foul trouble game. I'll put it that way, the way things are being called.
I just think we'll know, and you never know with this Denver Nuggets team, but I believe we'll know by the end of the first quarter. You know, I maybe even sooner, to be honest with you. Like, I just think, and I know there's a stat out there that Denver, when they lead after the first quarter, like their record is like impeccable. And they have just, I want to see that sense of urgency. Again, there's a sickness going around. We'll see how that impacts them as well. But like the Clippers have got to be coming back in this game with a lot of momentum, a lot of juice based off how that game ended. And this is where we're going to find out. Did firing Michael Malone make a difference? I know Calvin Booth, you know, like what is the energy like in the building tonight for the Denver Nuggets? Where is the level of focus at? Because you saw them, right? 3 wins to end the regular season, a win to start the playoffs. Oh, this is all great. David Adelman, get this guy's name on the short list for interim head coach. Maybe the players started to believe. But now, after that loss, do they sit back and be like, okay, we got to go to LA. Kawhi's otherworldly. James Harden is going to bounce back. Like, we don't got the team this year. Adelman's not our full-time head coach. 1, 2, 3 Cancun. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but you have to wonder where the mentality with this team is at after that emotional loss the other day.
First loss in the David Adelman era. Unfortunately, he will not be the first coach in NBA history to never lose a game and go undefeated. Anyway, we will talk to you after game 3 here on Denver Sports on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, where we go live. Shoot us a like and a subscribe and a comment on YouTube. I can't give you an ETA yet on that timing. Obviously, it'll probably be around, midnight or so, because that's when the game should end. It's an 8 o'clock tip. We've got a lot of stuff going tonight on Denver Sports. We've got live draft coverage. We've got a watch party going on today. We've got Mason Cecil that will give you a draft recap. So we're going to slot in somewhere in all of this madness. Stay tuned to at Media by AP, at Shapalicious. We'll tell you when all of this is going to go live. Of course, you can listen to it not live in your car Friday morning if you're not a sicko and stay up till 2 in the morning like me and AP. But I really do think that whoever wins this game is probably going to win this series. AP, how do you feel about that statement?
Ooh, that's a heck of a statement. I'm not willing to go that far just because I think Denver, I have Denver losing tonight. I'll come out and say it. I think I told you that immediately after game 2. Yeah, exactly. And so I just think the Nuggets never like to make it easy on themselves except for the championship season. That was the anomaly. And so I'm expecting the Clippers, right? First game in the Intuit Dome. Kawhi Leonard's playing great. James Harden bounced back. Zubac, as you alluded to, sickness going around the Nuggets. It would not surprise me if they lose tonight, but then still figure out a way to win this series as a whole. That's why I went Nuggets in 7 from the jump. That's what I'm sticking with, but I think it'll be a good game nonetheless.
So they lose tonight because of illness. They lose game 4 because of LA nightlife, but they win the series in 7.
Speculation. I think, but here's the thing.
So wait.
If they lose game 3.
So you're saying they're going to go down 3-1 and beat the Clippers in 7?
Weird, stranger things have happened before. I think I've seen that story before, my friend. In the bubble, though. In the bubble. I will say this, though. If they come out and lose tonight, I think that in essence can neutralize the LA nightlife, because I'm sure they'll probably still want to go out. But I mean, the perception of that, if you lose and then this and that, I don't know. You gotta they're professionals, right? At some point, these guys got to take it a little bit serious. So I don't know. Here's what I'm saying: they're gonna split in LA. I don't know if it's gonna be tonight, game 4, whatever it might be. My prediction is a split in LA. Take that home court advantage back, and then game 5, we'll see where it goes.
That Jokic, Bogey, Zubac, Chanchar dinner that happens in LA probably on Friday night will be talked about in the legends of Balkan basketball history. Probably that is going to be Rakia after Rakia at that dinner. Anyway, he's Aniello Piro. I'm Jake Shapiro. We'll be back on the Mile High Hoops podcast later today, talking about game 3. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you click on Denver Sports if you're interested in the NFL draft. There's so many local storylines. Should be pretty interesting.